The sister who always lived in shadows, Rachel Bennett, stood behind the counter of Pages and Dreams, the independent bookstore where she had worked for 6 years. At 28, she had built a quiet life surrounded by stories, finding comfort in fictional worlds where plain girls sometimes became heroines. Her reflection in the window showed a woman with warm brown eyes behind simple glasses, brown hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, and a body she had learned to hide. Under loose cardigans and flowing skirts, the afternoon sun filtered through the dusty windows, casting golden light on rows of beloved books. Rachel was reorganizing the poetry section when her phone buzzed insistently. 15 missed calls from Amanda. Her stomach tightened with familiar dread. "Rachel?" Finally. Amanda's voice dripped with false sweetness when she answered. "I need your help with something super important." Rachel closed her eyes, already knowing she would regret asking. "What is it, Amanda?" The golden child's latest scheme, her younger sister, had always been the family star. At 24, Amanda Bennett had inherited their mother's blonde hair and delicate features, along with their father's charming smile. She spent her days taking photos for her growing social media following, attending exclusive events, and dating wealthy men who could elevate her status. "So, you know how I've been talking to that businessman, James Wellington? The one who owns all those tech companies and does charity work?" Amanda's excited chatter filled Rachel's ear. "His assistant set up a blind date for tomorrow night at the Sterling Room, you know? That fancy place downtown, where reservations take months." Rachel felt the familiar ache of being the sister who heard about glamorous opportunities but never experienced them. "That sounds wonderful, Amanda. I hope you have a great time. Well, here's the thing." Amanda's voice shifted, taking on that manipulative tone Rachel knew too well. "I got invited to this exclusive yacht party by Preston Hughes. You know, the movie producer? This could be my big break into acting. But it's the same night as the date with James. So cancel the date with James," Rachel suggested, already sensing where this was heading. "Can't just cancel. These millionaire types have huge egos." "But I had the most brilliant idea." Amanda paused dramatically. "You could go in my place." To joke at her expense, Rachel's hand tightened around her phone. "Amanda, that's dishonest. You can't send someone else on your date." "Come on, Rach, it'll be hilarious. This guy probably thinks he can have any woman just because he's rich. Imagine his face when he sees you instead of me. It'll teach him some humility." Amanda laughed, the sound cutting through Rachel like glass. "Besides, when was the last time you even went on a date? This could be good for you. Free fancy dinner, nice restaurant. You might actually enjoy pretending to be interesting for one night." The words stung exactly where Amanda intended. Rachel hadn't been on a date in over 2 years. The last one had been a disaster with a friend of a friend who spent the entire evening comparing her to his ex-girlfriend before admitting he found her too intellectual and not enough fun. "I don't think this is a good idea," Rachel protested weakly. "Please, Rachel. You know how important my career is. This yacht party could change my entire life. Are you really going to be selfish enough to ruin this opportunity for me?" Amanda's voice took on that wounded quality she used whenever she wanted something. "I've always supported your little bookstore job, even when Mom and Dad said you were wasting your college degree. The least you could do is help me for one evening." The weight of family obligation, Oblakashal thought about their parents, who lived in Connecticut and called Amanda twice a week while barely remembering to text Rachel on her birthday. She thought about every family gathering where Amanda's accomplishments were celebrated while Rachel's love of books was dismissed as an antisocial hobby. She thought about the thousand small ways she had been made to feel like her role in the family was to be the responsible one who helped the special one shine. "Fine," Rachel heard herself say, hating the weakness in her voice. "But just this once, Amanda, and you have to tell him the truth eventually. Of course. You're the best sister ever." Amanda's enthusiasm returned instantly. "The reservation is at 7 tomorrow night. Wear something nice. Well, as nice as your wardrobe allows. Maybe borrow something from that friend of yours, the one with actual fashion sense." "Oh, and Rachel, try to smile and be pleasant. I know it's hard for you, but millionaires expect women to be charming." After hanging up, Rachel stood in the empty bookstore, surrounded by thousands of stories about people braver than she was. Her friend Rebecca, who managed a boutique downtown, often told her she was too kind for her own good. Maybe Rebecca was right. Maybe saying yes to every unreasonable request from Amanda was not kindness, but cowardice. Preparing for humiliation the next evening, Rachel stood in front of Rebecca's full-length mirror, barely recognizing herself. Her friend had insisted on helping, lending her a simple burgundy dress that actually fit properly, showing that Rachel had a figure she usually kept hidden. Rebecca had done her makeup with a light touch, enhancing rather than masking, and convinced her to wear her contact lenses instead of her usual thick-framed glasses. "You look beautiful," Rebecca said firmly, seeing the doubt in Rachel's eyes. "That Wellington guy would be lucky to have dinner with you." "He's expecting Amanda," Rachel reminded her. "This whole thing is just a cruel joke." "Then why are you going?" Rachel had asked herself the same question dozens of times. "Because it's easier than dealing with Amanda's guilt trips for the next 6 months. Because my parents would somehow make it my fault if her career didn't take off. Because saying no to my family has never been an option." Rebecca squeezed her shoulder. "One of these days, you're going to stand up for yourself. And when you do, the world better watch out." The moment of truth, the Sterling Room occupied the top floor of a historic building downtown. Offering panoramic views of the city's skyline, Rachel felt completely out of place as the hostess led her through the elegant dining room. Past tables of beautiful people who seemed to belong in this world of crystal chandeliers and piano music, James Wellington stood as she approached the table. Rachel's breath caught. He was tall, with dark hair touched with gray at the temples, wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit. His blue eyes were striking, but it was the kindness in them that surprised her most. The photos Amanda had shown her from business magazines hadn't captured the warmth of his smile. "Amanda?" he asked, though his expression suggested confusion. Rachel's carefully prepared explanation died in her throat. She couldn't start this evening with a complete lie. "Actually, I'm Rachel, Amanda's older sister. She had a conflict tonight and asked me to come explain in person." The words came out in a rush. "I'm so sorry you were stood up. I can leave right away, so you're not stuck with an awkward dinner." James studied her face for a long moment. Instead of anger or disappointment, his smile deepened. "That's remarkably honest of you. Most people would have tried to maintain the deception." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Would you consider staying? I find myself very curious about Amanda's older sister, who practices such refreshing honesty." An unexpected beginning. Rachel hesitated, her hand on the back of the chair. "Mr. Wellington, you don't have to be polite. I know you were expecting to meet my sister. She's the pretty one, the charming one. I'm just the bookish sister who got sent as a joke." "A joke?" His eyebrows rose. "I'm afraid I don't understand." Shame flooded through Rachel. She shouldn't have said that. "Nothing. I should go, Rachel." Something in the way he said her name made her pause. "Please sit down. You've come all this way, and I promise you the food here is exceptional. Even if you're only staying out of pity for a man who apparently got stood up, I would appreciate the company." Against her better judgment, Rachel sat. The waiter appeared immediately. James ordered wine without the pretentious performance she had expected from a millionaire. As he talked easily about the restaurant's history, Rachel found herself relaxing slightly, though she kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. James said after they had ordered their meals. "Tell me about yourself, Rachel. What do you do when you're not rescuing millionaires from dining alone?" "I manage a bookstore, Pages and Dreams, over on Maple Street." She waited for the dismissive response she usually got. Instead, his eyes lit up. "Independent one with the reading events. I've walked past it a dozen times and always meant to go in." "What kind of events do you run?" For the first time that evening, Rachel forgot to be self-conscious. "We do story time for children every Saturday morning. Thursday evenings, we host a book club that focuses on diverse voices in literature. Once a month, we bring in local authors for readings and discussions." Her hands moved expressively as she spoke, the way they always did when she talked about something she loved. James leaned forward, genuinely engaged. "That sounds incredible. Building community around literature is so rare these days. How did you get into that work?" A real conversation as Rachel talked about her love of books and her dreams of expanding the store's community programs. She realized something strange was happening. James was actually listening. Not the polite half-attention people usually gave before changing the subject, but real engagement. He asked thoughtful questions, shared his own experiences with reading, and talked about the literacy programs his foundation supported. "My grandmother was a librarian," James told her, his expression softening. "She taught me that books are windows into other lives, other possibilities. She grew up poor, and reading was what gave her the tools to imagine a different future." He paused, meeting Rachel's eyes. People who dedicate their lives to sharing that gift with others are doing some of the most important work in the world. Rachel felt tears prickling behind her eyes. No one had ever valued her work that way. "Your grandmother sounds wonderful," she was. "I wish she were still here. She would have loved meeting someone who truly understands why stories matter."
Oh.
James smiled. "Tell me about your favorite book." They talked for 3 hours. The food came and went, almost unnoticed as they discussed literature, dreams, and the kinds of deep questions that usually only existed in Rachel's internal monologue. James told her about growing up with wealth, but feeling disconnected from people's real problems. Rachel shared her struggles with feeling invisible in her own family. "I've spent 28 years being the sister who helps from the background," Rachel admitted, surprised by her own openness. "The responsible one. The plain one who makes sure the beautiful one can shine." James set down his wine glass carefully. "Rachel, can I tell you what I see when I look at you?" Her heart pounded. "I'm not sure I want to know." "I see someone with genuine passion lighting up her face when she talks about something she loves. I see intelligence and kindness. I see a woman who chose honesty over deception, even when it would have been easier to lie." He paused. "I see beauty that's real, not manufactured."
Rachel
couldn't breathe. No one had ever spoken to her like this. "I'm going to tell you something," James continued. "When my assistant showed me the social media profiles to arrange this date, I asked to meet you. The world seemed to stop spinning." Rachel whispered. "There was a photo of you and Amanda together at some family event. She looked beautiful in that obvious, performative way. But you were standing slightly apart, holding a book, and there was something in your expression. A depth, a realness. I asked my assistant to arrange a meeting with the sister who loved books, not the one who loved cameras." The truth revealed Rachel felt as if she were in one of the stories she shelved every day. "You wanted to meet me? But Amanda said you requested a blind date with her." James shook his head slowly. "My assistant probably communicated it poorly. Or perhaps your sister heard what she wanted to hear. But I specifically asked about the woman in that photo who looked like she was lost and thought about something far more interesting than the party around her. I can't believe this." Rachel's voice shook. "Amanda sent me here as a joke. She thought it would be funny to see your disappointment when the ugly sister showed up instead of her." Anger flashed across James's face, the first strong emotion she had seen from him all evening. "That's cruel, and also completely wrong. You are not ugly, Rachel. You're genuine, which is infinitely more rare and valuable." Rachel wanted to believe him. She wanted it so badly it terrified her. "This has been the best evening I've had in years," James said softly. "Would you let me see you again? No pretense, no substitutions. Just Rachel and James getting to know each other?" Before she could answer, her phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. "Is he devastated? Did you see his face? This is comedy gold. Send pics if you can." The casual cruelty of it hit Rachel like cold water. For the first time in her life, she felt something new rising up inside her. Not resignation or acceptance, but anger. Pure, clean anger at being treated as less than, as a punchline, as someone whose feelings didn't matter. "Yes," Rachel said, looking up at James. "I would like to see you again." Very much his smile transformed his entire face. "Tomorrow. There's a literacy fundraiser I'm hosting. It's mostly boring speeches, but I would love to have someone there who actually cares about the cause, rather than just the networking opportunities." As they left the restaurant, James walked her to her car like a perfect gentleman. Before she got in, he took her hand gently. "Thank you for tonight, Rachel. For your honesty, your conversation, and for giving me a chance to meet the woman I actually wanted to know. Driving home, Rachel caught sight of her reflection in the rearview mirror. The woman looking back at her had flushed cheeks, bright eyes, and a smile that reached all the way to her soul. For the first time in 28 years, she didn't see the ugly sister. She saw herself. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The morning after truth, Rachel woke up to 17 missed calls from Amanda and a string of increasingly agitated text messages. She stared at her phone screen. Still tucked under Rebecca's spare blanket on the couch, where she had talked until 3 in the morning about the impossible evening she had, experienced the last message from Amanda Reed. Why aren't you answering? You're being so dramatic. Call me now. For once, Rachel didn't feel the immediate urge to comply. She made herself coffee, showered, and got dressed for work before finally calling her sister back. Finally, Amanda snapped, I've been trying to reach you for hours. So tell me everything. How embarrassed was he? Did he try to leave right away? Did you at least get a free meal out of it before he ditched you? Rachel took a slow breath, feeling something shift inside her chest. Actually, Amanda, we had dinner. We talked for 3 hours, and he asked to see me again. The unraveling of illusions, silence stretched across the line before Amanda's laugh rang out, sharp and disbelieving. Right, very funny, Rachel. Seriously? What happened? I'm serious. We're going to a literacy fundraiser together tonight. That's impossible. Amanda's voice turned cold. Men like James Wellington don't date women like you. He was probably just being polite, because he felt sorry for you. The old Rachel would have absorbed those words like poison, letting them confirm every insecurity she carried. But something had changed last night. James had looked at her like she mattered, like her thoughts and dreams were worth hours of his time. He had chosen her, specifically requested to meet her, before ever seeing Amanda's perfectly filtered photos. You know what, Amanda? Maybe he does pity me. Or maybe, just maybe, there's a man out there who values substance over selfies. Rachel's voice remained steady. Either way, I'm going to find out. You're being ridiculous. You're going to embarrass yourself and our entire family. Amanda's tone shifted to the wounded victim act she performed so well. I can't believe you're doing this to me. I asked you for one simple favor, and now you're trying to steal my date. Your date that you ditched for a yacht party? The date with a man who specifically asked to meet me in the first place? Rachel felt years of suppressed frustration rising. Amanda, I've spent my entire life making myself smaller so you could feel bigger. I'm done. She hung up before her sister could respond, her hands shaking but her heart feeling lighter than it had in years. A different kind of beautiful. The literacy fundraiser was held at the Grand Peninsula Hotel, in a ballroom that dripped with crystal and elegance. Rachel wore a simple forest green dress that Rebecca had insisted she buy, claiming it made her eyes look luminous. She had pulled her hair back in a soft twist and wore minimal makeup, feeling more like herself than she had the previous night. James was waiting in the lobby. His face lit up when he saw her. You look absolutely lovely. I look like a bookstore manager playing dress-up, Rachel said, then caught herself. Sorry, that's my sister's voice in my head. I'm working on shutting it up. He offered his arm. How about this? You look like a woman who knows who she is and doesn't apologize for it, which in my experience is the rarest and most attractive quality a person can have. The fundraiser was everything James had warned her about. Lots of wealthy people in expensive clothes, giving speeches about literacy while checking their phones. But there were also teachers, librarians, and community organizers who were doing real work with real kids. Rachel found herself deep in conversation with a woman named Patricia, who ran an after-school reading program in an underserved neighborhood. The kids just need someone to believe they can be readers, Patricia explained passionately. So many of them have been told they're not smart enough or that reading isn't for people like them. Breaking through that barrier changes everything. Worlds colliding. That's exactly what I tried to do at the bookstore, Rachel said. Excitement building. We have a program where kids can earn free books by reading to younger children. It builds confidence and creates a reading culture. James had been pulled away to talk with donors, but Rachel caught him glancing over at her several times, a smile playing at his lips. When he returned, he brought Patricia with him. I've been telling Mr. Wellington that his foundation should partner with people like Rachel, Patricia said. She has ideas that could transform how we approach youth literacy. Part 2. Breaking free from the shadows, the morning after truth Rachel woke. Up to 17 missed calls from Amanda and a string of increasingly agitated text messages. She stared at her phone screen, still tucked under Rebecca's spare blanket on the couch, where she had talked until 3 in the morning about the impossible evening she had. Experienced the last message from Amanda Reed. Why aren't you answering? You're being so dramatic. Call me now. For once, Rachel didn't feel the immediate urge to comply. She made herself coffee, showered, and got dressed for work before finally calling her sister back. Finally, Amanda snapped. I've been trying to reach you for hours, so tell me everything. How embarrassed was he? Did he try to leave right away? Did you at least get a free meal out of it before he ditched you? Rachel took a slow breath, feeling something shift inside her chest. Actually, Amanda, we had dinner. We talked for 3 hours, and he asked to see me again. The unraveling of illusions silence stretched across the line before Amanda's laugh rang out, sharp and disbelieving. Right, very funny, Rachel. Seriously, what happened? I'm serious. We're going to a literacy fundraiser together tonight. That's impossible. Amanda's voice turned cold. Men like James Wellington don't date women like you. He was probably just being polite because he felt sorry for you. The old Rachel would have absorbed those words like poison, letting them confirm every insecurity she carried. But something had changed last night. James had looked at her like she mattered, like her thoughts and dreams were worth hours of his time. He had chosen her, specifically requested to meet her, before ever seeing Amanda's perfectly filtered photos. You know what, Amanda? Maybe he does pity me. Or maybe, just maybe, there's a man out there who values substance over selfies. Rachel's voice remained steady. Either way, I'm going to find out. You're being ridiculous. You're going to embarrass yourself and our entire family. Amanda's tone shifted to the wounded victim act she performed so well. I can't believe you're doing this to me. I asked you for one simple favor, and now you're trying to steal my date. Your date that you ditched for a yacht party? The date with a man who specifically asked to meet me in the first place? Rachel felt years of suppressed frustration rising. Amanda, I've spent my entire life making myself smaller so you could feel bigger. I'm done. She hung up before her sister could respond. Her hands shaking, but her heart feeling lighter than it had in years. A different kind of beautiful the literacy fundraiser was held at the Grand Peninsula Hotel, in a ballroom that dripped with crystal and elegance. Rachel wore a simple forest green dress that Rebecca had insisted she buy, claiming it made her eyes look luminous. She had pulled her hair back in a soft twist and wore minimal makeup, feeling more like herself than she had the previous night. James was waiting in the lobby, and his face lit up when he saw her. You look absolutely lovely. You look like a bookstore manager playing dress-up, Rachel said, then caught herself. Sorry, that's my sister's voice in my head. I'm working on shutting it up. He offered his arm. How about this? You look like a woman who knows who she is and doesn't apologize for it. Which, in my experience, is the rarest and most attractive quality a person can have. The fundraiser was everything James had warned her about. Lots of wealthy people in expensive clothes, giving speeches about literacy while checking their phones. But there were also teachers, librarians, and community organizers who were doing real work with real kids. Rachel found herself deep in conversation with a woman named Patricia who ran an after-school reading program in an underserved neighborhood. The kids just need someone to believe they can be readers, Patricia explained passionately. So many of them have been told they're not smart enough or that reading isn't for people like them. Breaking through that barrier changes everything. Worlds colliding. That's exactly what I try to do at the bookstore, Rachel said, excitement building. We have a program where kids can earn free books by reading to younger children. It builds confidence and creates a reading culture. James had been pulled away to talk with donors, but Rachel caught him glancing over at her several times, a smile playing at his lips. When he returned, he brought Patricia with him. I've been telling Mr. Wellington that his foundation should partner with people like Rachel, Patricia said. She has ideas that could transform how we approach youth literacy. I've been thinking the same thing, James agreed. Rachel, how would you feel about consulting for the foundation? We need people who understand the real barriers to reading, not just the fundraising side. Rachel felt dizzy. I'm just a bookstore manager. You're an expert who's been doing this work for years, James corrected gently. Stop diminishing yourself. The evening passed in a blur of conversations, introductions, and possibilities. Rachel met educators and philanthropists, shared ideas about mobile libraries and bilingual story programs, and felt her mind expanding with every exchange. This was a world she had never imagined accessing. Yet here she was, being taken seriously by people who shaped education policy as they left the hotel around 10 o'clock. James suggested a walk through the nearby park. The spring air was mild, and the city lights reflected off the lake. You were amazing tonight, James said. Watching you talk about literacy programs was like watching someone come alive. I've never been in a room like that before. Rachel hugged herself against the evening breeze. Everyone was so accomplished, including you. Did you hear yourself tonight? You proposed 3 different programs that had board members pulling out their checkbooks. He stopped walking, turning to face her. Rachel, why is it so hard for you to see your own value? The root of self-doubt Rackle looked out at the dark water, gathering her thoughts. When you grow up being compared to someone constantly, someone who's considered better in every way that society values, you start to believe you're less. My parents never said I was ugly, but they didn't have to. It was in how they showed off Amanda's photos, but never mine. How they bragged about her social life, but changed the subject when people asked about me. How they'd say things like, well, Rachel's the smart one, as if that was a consolation prize. James's jaw tightened. That's not parenting. That's cruelty. You probably didn't mean it that way. Amanda really is special. She lights up every room she enters. Rachel's voice caught. And I'm the one who fades into the wallpaper. No. James's voice was firm. You're the one who chooses substance over performance. You're the one who built something meaningful instead of just looking for attention. There's a huge difference. He stepped closer, and Rachel could feel her heart racing. I'm going to be very honest with you, James said softly. I've dated a lot of women over the years. Beautiful women, successful women, women who looked perfect on paper. Do you know what they all had in common? Rachel shook her head, not trusting her voice. I was bored within an hour. Conversations about nothing. Carefully curated personalities designed to be appealing rather than authentic. I felt lonelier with them than I did alone. He reached up, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. With you, 3 hours felt like 30 minutes. I want to know everything about you. That's not pity, Rachel. That's fascination. Choosing risk over safety, Rachel felt tears welling up. I'm scared. What if this is too good to be true? What if you wake up tomorrow and realize you could have someone prettier, more exciting, more everything? What if I already have exactly who I want? James countered. What if the woman standing in front of me, scared but brave enough to be honest about it, is precisely who I've been looking for? He took her hand, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her palm. I'm not asking you to be perfect, Rachel. I'm asking you to be real. To give us a chance? Rachel thought about Amanda's mocking voice, her parents' disappointment, years of making herself small. Then she thought about Patricia's words at the fundraiser, about breaking through barriers. Maybe it was time to break through her own. Okay, she whispered, but I need you to be patient with me. I'm not good at this. At believing I deserve good things? James smiled, and it reached all the way to his eyes. Then we'll work on that together. But Rachel, you need to know something. The foundation wants to hire you officially. Part-time at first, designing literacy programs. The board was unanimous. What? When did this happen? During dinner, while you were talking with Patricia, 3 board members came to me saying we'd be fools not to bring you on. He squeezed her hand. This isn't because of me. It's because you impressed them with your knowledge and passion. A sister sabotager's phone buzzed insistently in her purse. She ignored it, but it kept buzzing. Finally, she checked the screen. 23 messages from Amanda. She opened the most recent one and felt her blood run cold. I told Mom and Dad about your little game. They want to talk to you immediately. They're very disappointed that you're embarrassing the family by pretending to be someone you're not. Also, James's assistant called me asking about consulting fees for the foundation. I told her there must be some mistake, that you're just a bookstore clerk with no real qualifications. You're welcome. Someone had to save you from humiliating yourself. Rachel's hands trembled as she showed James the message. His expression darkened. She contacted my foundation. She's trying to protect me, Rachel said automatically, then stopped herself. No, that's not true. She's trying to sabotage me because I'm getting something she wanted. James was already on his phone. Let me call Diane, my assistant, and straighten this out. While he stepped away to make the call, Rachel felt the familiar weight of family obligation pressing down on her. Her parents wanted to talk to her, disappointed as always. Amanda had interfered with a job opportunity. The old patterns were reasserting themselves, trying to pull her back into the role of the sister who didn't cause problems, who didn't reach for things meant for Amanda. But something was different now. She had spent an evening with people who valued her ideas. She had watched board members take notes while she spoke. She had felt James's hand in hers, steady and sure, treating her like someone precious rather than someone pitiful. Drawing a line, James returned, his expression serious. Diane said your sister called claiming to be you, saying you weren't interested in the position. I've cleared it up. The offer stands if you want it. I want it, Rachel said, the words coming out stronger than she expected. I absolutely want it. Good, because Diane also said the board is excited to work with you. He paused. Rachel, I don't want to overstep, but your sister's behavior is concerning. This goes beyond sibling rivalry into active sabotage. Rachel nodded slowly. I know. I've just never known how to stand up to her. To any of them, maybe it's time to learn. That night, back in her small apartment above the bookstore, Rachel finally called her parents. Her father answered, his voice heavy with disappointment she'd heard 1,000 times before. Rachel, your mother and I are very concerned. Amanda says you're making up stories about dating some millionaire and getting job offers you're not qualified for. This isn't like you. Actually, Dad, it's exactly like me. You just never paid attention. Rachel surprised herself with the steadiness in her voice. James Wellington asked to meet me specifically. The foundation offered me a consulting position because they valued my expertise. These things happened, whether Amanda believes them or not. Rachel, there's no need to get defensive. We're just worried about you. Amanda said this man might be taking advantage of you. And we think, no, Rachel interrupted. I'm 28 years old. I don't need Amanda to speak for me, and I don't need you to believe her version of my life over my own. The breaking point, her mother's voice came on the line, sharp with offense. Don't take that tone with your father. We've always supported you, even when you made questionable choices like that bookstore job instead of using your degree properly. You've always supported Amanda, Rachel corrected. I've been the responsible one who never complained, never asked for help, never expected you to brag about me. But supporting someone means believing in them, and you've never believed in me. That's not fair, Rachel. You're being very hurtful right now. I'm being honest. There's a difference. Rachel felt something breaking open inside her, years of silence cracking apart. I'm done being the daughter who makes herself smaller, so Amanda can feel bigger. I'm done apologizing for having a life that doesn't revolve around her needs. If you're going to be dramatic, we can talk when you're calmer, her father said dismissively. I am calm, and I'm done with this conversation. Rachel took a deep breath. I love you both, but I need space from this family dynamic. Please don't call me unless you're ready to see me as a person, not just Amanda's supporting character. She hung up before they could respond, her whole body shaking. Rebecca emerged from the bedroom, where she'd obviously been listening. That was the bravest thing I've ever heard you do, Rebecca said, pulling Rachel into a hug. I think I'm going to throw up. That's normal. You just rewrote your entire family's script. It's terrifying and amazing. Rebecca pulled back, studying her face. How do you feel? Rachel considered the question. Scared? Guilty? Free? Is it possible to feel all of those at once? Absolutely. Welcome to setting boundaries. It gets easier. I promise. Building something new over the next 2 weeks, Rachel's life transformed in ways both wonderful and challenging. She started her consulting work with the foundation, meeting with educators and developing programs. She went on for more dates with James, each one deepening their connection. She moved into a small but sunny apartment of her own, finally having a space that reflected her taste rather than her sister's demands. But she showed up at the bookstore during Rachel's shift, causing a scene about family betrayal. She posted cryptic messages on social media about fake people and stolen opportunities. She called Rachel's new landlord, claiming there had been a mistake with the application. Each incident was small, but cumulatively exhausting. Rachel found herself doubting again, wondering if she deserved the good things happening in her life. Then came the morning James called to ask if she'd like to meet his mother. "It's completely okay if you're not ready," he said quickly. "I know we've only been seeing each other for 3 weeks, but my mother is visiting from Connecticut. I've told her so much about you that she's insisting on meeting the woman who has me using words like enchanted." Rachel's first instinct was to say no, to hide, to protect herself from potential disappointment. But then she remembered the woman in the park who had been brave enough to be honest about her fears, and James's response that he wanted real, not perfect. "I'd love to meet her," Rachel said, and meant it. Meeting the family Dorothy Wellington was not what Rachel expected. Instead of the polished society matron she had imagined, James's mother was a woman in her early 60s, with silver hair and a practical bob,
Albert.
wearing comfortable slacks and a cardigan that had seen better days. She was waiting in James's penthouse apartment, surrounded by books. "I raided his shelves," Dorothy said cheerfully, when James and Rachel arrived. "He told me you manage a bookstore, so I wanted to see if we had reading taste in common. Turns out we do. He has a first edition of To Kill a Mockingbird. I'm insanely jealous." Rachel felt her nervousness dissolve. "That's one of my desert island books. The way it handles justice and childhood innocence still gives me chills." "Oh, we're going to get along wonderfully," Dorothy declared, pulling Rachel into an unexpected hug. "James, darling, go make yourself useful in the kitchen. Rachel and I need to talk." A mother's wisdom once James left. Dorothy gestured for Rachel to sit beside her on the couch. "He told me about your sister. About the cruel joke that brought you two together." Rachel felt heat rising in her cheeks. "It's complicated." "It's not complicated at all. It's simple cruelty disguised as family dynamics."
No.
Dorothy's voice was gentle but firm. "I know something about that. I grew up with a sister who was considered the beauty, while I was the brain. Sound familiar?" Rachel nodded, afraid to speak past the lump in her throat. "Here's what I learned after years of therapy and self-work," Dorothy continued. "People who consistently diminish you do so because your light threatens their narrative about themselves. Your sister needs you to be less so she can feel like more. But you don't have to accept that role. I'm trying not to. But it's hard when it's been your whole life." Rachel twisted her hands in her lap. "My parents called last week. They said I was being selfish and dramatic, that I was breaking up the family over nothing." Dorothy's expression sharpened. "Let me guess. They want you to apologize to your sister and go back to how things were? How did you know?" "Because that's what families do when the scapegoat stops playing their assigned role. They panic and try to force you back into place." Dorothy took Rachel's hand. "But here's what they don't tell you. You're not breaking up the family. You're refusing to participate in a dysfunctional system. There's a huge difference." The truth about Worth James returned with coffee and pastries, settling into a chair across from them. Rachel could see the concern in his eyes, the way he watched her carefully, as if afraid she might bolt. "Your son told me you were a librarian," Rachel said to Dorothy, grateful for the change of subject. "For 35 years. Best job I ever had." And Dorothy smiled. "I met my husband, James's father, at the library. He came in every week to read the financial newspapers, and I kept recommending novels to him. He claimed he wasn't interested in fiction, but he kept coming back." "She wore him down," James added. "Literally forced 100 years of solitude into his hands and told him not to come back until he'd read it. Came back 3 days later. Completely in love with magical realism and with me," Dorothy finished. "We were married 42 years before he passed." Reading together was one of our greatest joys. Rachel felt a pang of longing. That's beautiful. Can be your life too, Dorothy said gently. If you let it. But first, you have to believe you deserve it. The words hit Rachel like a physical blow. I don't know if I do. Why not? James leaned forward. Rachel, you're brilliant, compassionate, creative. You've built programs that have helped hundreds of kids discover reading. You light up every room you enter when you talk about something you love. Why wouldn't you deserve happiness? The final test Rachel's phone buzzed. Then again, and again. She glanced at the screen and felt her stomach drop. Amanda had somehow gotten James's address and was downstairs, demanding to be let up. I'm so sorry, Rachel said, standing quickly. I'll get rid of her. We'll handle it together, James said firmly. But Rachel shook her head. No, this is something I need to do myself. She rode the elevator down to the lobby, her heart pounding, but her resolve steady. Amanda was there in a tight white dress and heels, her makeup perfect, her expression furious. What are you doing, Rachel? Amanda hissed. Playing house with a millionaire? Do you really think this ends well for you? What do you want, Amanda? I want you to stop humiliating our family. Mom and Dad are mortified. Everyone is talking about how desperate you are, chasing after a man who was supposed to be my date. Amanda's voice rose. You're making us all look pathetic. Rachel took a deep breath. I'm not chasing anyone. James asked to meet me. The foundation hired me because I'm good at my job. These are things happening because of who I am, not despite it. You're delusional. He feels sorry for you? Why else would someone like him be with someone like you? Amanda's words were designed to cut, to wound, to send Rachel running back to her assigned place. But something had shifted in Rachel. She had spent 3 weeks being valued, being seen, being treated as if her thoughts and feelings mattered. She had met James's mother, who saw echoes of her own story in Rachel's struggles. She had been offered a job based on her expertise, not her connections. Standing in her truth, you know what, Amanda? Maybe he does feel sorry for me. Maybe this whole thing will crash and burn tomorrow. Maybe I'll get my heart broken. Rachel's voice was steady. But at least I'll have tried. At least I'll have had 3 weeks of feeling valued and seen and appreciated. That's 3 weeks more than I ever got from you or Mom or Dad. Amanda's perfect mask cracked slightly. That's not fair. I've always looked out for you. No, you've always used me. There's a difference. Rachel felt tears building but refused to let them fall. You sent me to that dinner as a joke. You interfered with my job offer. You called my landlord to try to sabotage my lease. You've told Mom and Dad lies about me. None of that is looking out for me. I was trying to protect you from getting hurt. You were trying to protect yourself from having to see me succeed. The truth of it rang clear in Rachel's voice. Because if I'm not the ugly sister, the boring one, the one who exists to make you shine, then who are you? Amanda's face flushed red. I'm the one people actually want. The one with friends and opportunities and a real life, not just hiding in a bookstore with dusty books. Then why are you here? Rachel asked quietly. If your life is so much better than mine, why do you care what I'm doing? The question hung in the air between them. Amanda opened her mouth, closed it, then turned on her heel and walked away without another word. Rachel rode the elevator back up, her whole body trembling. When she entered the penthouse, James and Dorothy were standing by the window. Clearly having watched the scene in the lobby through the building's security camera. I'm proud of you, Dorothy said simply. James crossed to Rachel, pulling her into his arms. She let herself lean into him, feeling the tremors of adrenaline work through her system. I stood up to her, Rachel whispered against his chest. I actually stood up to her. You were magnificent, James murmured into her hair. 6 months later, Rachel stood in front of the mirror in her apartment, barely recognizing the woman looking back. Not because she looked different physically, but she had started wearing clothes that fit properly in styles that made her feel confident. The change was in her eyes, in the way she held herself, in the smile that came more easily now. The foundation work had expanded. She was now a full-time program director, overseeing literacy initiatives across 3 states. Her ideas about mobile libraries and bilingual story programs were being implemented in dozens of communities. She had been interviewed by education journals and invited to speak at conferences. The bookstore was thriving too. She had hired 2 part-time employees, freeing her to focus on the community programming she loved. Saturday Storytime had grown so popular they had to move it to the park in good weather to accommodate all the children and James. James had become her partner in every sense of the word. He challenged her thinking, supported her dreams, and loved her with a steadiness that still sometimes took her breath away. The invitation, her phone rang. She didn't recognize the number. Rachel. It's Mom. Rachel's first instinct was too tense, waiting for criticism. Instead, her mother's voice sounded tentative, almost nervous. I saw the article about you in Education Monthly. The work you're doing with literacy programs, it's remarkable, Rachel. Really remarkable. Thank you, Rachel said carefully. I wanted to apologize. Your father and I have done a lot of thinking these past months. We treated you unfairly. We compared you to Amanda constantly. And we dismissed your accomplishments because they weren't the kind of success we understood. Her mother paused. We were wrong. We're so sorry. Rachel felt tears spilling down her cheeks. I appreciate that, Mom. Could we see you? Maybe have dinner? I'd like to try to rebuild our relationship, if you're willing. Rachel thought about forgiveness, about the difference between reconciliation and returning to old patterns. I'd like that. But things need to be different. They will be. I promise we'll try. After hanging up, Rachel realized James had arrived, using the key she had given him last month. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, meeting her eyes in the mirror. Your family? He asked gently. My mom, apologizing, wanting to reconnect. Rachel leaned back against him. I'm scared. That's wise. Trust is rebuilt slowly. He kissed her temple. But you get to set the boundaries. You get to decide what a relationship with them looks like. When did I get so brave? Rachel wondered aloud. You were always brave. You just needed to see yourself clearly. James turned her to face him. Speaking of which, I have something to ask you. He dropped to one knee, and Rachel's heart stopped. The choice, Rachel Bennett. 6 months ago, you walked into my life as part of a cruel joke, and you became the best thing that ever happened to me. You've taught me about real courage, about building something meaningful, about loving someone not despite their fears but with compassion for their journey. James pulled out a small velvet box. I want to spend the rest of my life seeing you the way you truly are. Brilliant. Compassionate, beautiful, and absolutely irreplaceable. Will you marry me? Rachel looked down at the man she loved, then back at her reflection in the mirror. She saw a woman who had learned her own worth, who had built a career she loved, who had set boundaries with her family, who had chosen courage over comfort again and again. Yes, she whispered. Then louder, yes, absolutely yes. As James slipped the ring onto her finger, Rachel thought about the woman she had been 6 months ago. Hiding behind loose clothes and thick glasses, believing she was the ugly sister who would never be chosen. That woman had been wrong about so much. She wasn't the ugly sister. She had never been the ugly sister. She had just been surrounded by people who needed her to believe she was less so they could feel like more. The real fairy tale wasn't that a millionaire had chosen her. It was that she had finally chosen herself. The ending 1 year later. Rachel stood in a garden surrounded by friends, colleagues, and students from her literacy programs. Her parents were there, rebuilding their relationship with tentative but genuine steps. Rebecca stood beside her as maid of honor. Amanda hadn't come to the wedding. She had sent a brief message 2 months earlier, congratulating Rachel, but saying she needed more time. Rachel had responded with grace, letting her sister know the door was open when she was ready. As Rachel walked down the aisle toward James, she passed Patricia from the after-school reading program. Holding the hand of a young girl who had just won a citywide essay contest, she passed board members from the foundation, educators whose programs she had helped fund, children whose lives had been changed by discovering the magic of stories, and she passed a mirror that had been placed strategically by the wedding planner, part of the garden's decorative elements. For just a moment, Rachel caught her reflection. She saw a woman in a simple but elegant wedding dress. her brown hair falling in soft waves, her eyes bright with joy. She saw someone who had learned that beauty came in many forms, that worth was determined from within, and that the right person would see her exactly as she was and love her not despite her perceived flaws, but as a complete and extraordinary whole. The ugly sister was gone. In her place stood Rachel Bennett, soon to be Rachel Wellington, program director, literacy advocate, beloved partner, and most importantly, a woman who knew her own value. And as James took her hand at the altar, his eyes shining with love and pride, Rachel realized something profound. The best revenge against those who tried to diminish her wasn't proving them wrong. It was building a life so full of purpose, joy, and love that their opinions simply didn't matter anymore. She had been sent as a joke. She had become a dream come true. And the best part? The dream was her own.